Hey guys, Josh from Sailing Vessel Airspeed, and today we are going to be installing our Atlantic Towers Super Sail Arch, which is all unpacked in pieces on the dock. The Super Sail Arch is a stern arch that has a davit kit and has all sorts of different accessories that you can add to it, you know, motor mounts and all sorts of different things. Today we're going to be installing it on our Jeanneau 54 DS. And from what I've seen, the installation is not super difficult. It just involves a lot of individual steps. No installation is the same as another installation. It looks like just from a quick inspection of our boat, we're gonna have to move some wiring and maybe even some electronics that are mounted on the surface. And the objective here for us is to have an arch system on which we can install solar and hang davits for our 12-foot center console tender that we'll be carrying around with us. So look forward to bringing you along for the process here. Okay, so we've begun the process of trying to figure out first where this arch is going to be mounted on the boat, and that will present a whole set of additional questions and answers, hopefully. We have lots of electronics and other surface mount devices that may need to be moved, and we don't want to disturb any of the additional installations that are already in place here. I'll show you what I mean. So right there we have 3 antennas for 3 different devices on the boat, GPS, and I don't even know what the rest of them are. It doesn't really matter right now. I haven't gotten under there. And at least one of them is going to need to be moved. Over here on the port side, we have one surface mount device here, but we have plenty of room outboard of the coaming between the cleat and this here seat. So I'm not too worried about the port side. This is the pieces of the arch right here. The next step, I think, is to figure out where we're going to mount it and then measure and go from there. We removed the GPS and the AIS antennas, and this is what we're left with here. I guess it's not a bad thing that we had to get under here because there was a lot of water making its way through. The way that we're going to figure out where on the boat is exactly the same spot on the other side is we're going to try to reuse this center hole here and put the backing plate behind it, and that should align with the center hole here. What we're going to do though is measure from the edge of this rail over, and just for reference sake, we're going to spin this so it's 90 degrees, and then we're going to measure out from that center hole to here, and we'll know the distance here using some just real basic geometry. So let's see how that works out. Morning guys, this is the morning of day 2 of the Tower in a Box Atlantic Towers arch installation on our Jeanneau 54 DS. And yesterday we had some pretty frustrating encounters, unfortunately. I'm going to bring you up to the arch and show you what the situation is. Alright, I'm standing at the center of the arch here. From this extreme here to this extreme here is the coupler that holds the 2 end pieces together. Now of course it comes in 3 pieces, and it's very easy to slide the coupler onto one end. However, once that is situated, it's extraordinarily difficult to get this piece on. And the reason is because these are incredibly awkward. Though symmetrical, they're awkward pieces that are subject to a lot of twisting and torsioning. And so there was a lot of binding going on this side here, between this outside arm and this end of the coupler. We had to slide this 18 inches into the coupler. Now what you didn't see, because we were so frustrated we didn't feel like filming, is the fact that we had to cut some ends off. So ultimately these arms here were far too long, and the reason is, obviously, this is manufactured as as a semi-custom, one size fits most in a certain class. And it's adjustable for the width of the arch that you want to design. So we cut 5 inches off each one of these legs, and we buried it in 18 inches on each side. And we finally figured out, after, I mean, almost every single combination, that we needed to raise up this portion and twist it. I guess the orientation we had, it was counterclockwise. And then we attached these ratchet straps, one on each side, and you know, just a couple of clicks at a time on each side, we managed to slowly bring it in. Now, this is a tip that I kind of came up with on my own, but I think it is going to be very useful to anybody who wants to do this in the future. Is take a hose clamp and stop and tighten the hose clamp up where you want it to stop. You don't want it to be adjusting itself while it's being flown above your boat while you're trying to do a dry fit. On my boat, the issue, it's not an issue, but it makes it a little more challenging. With the sloped transom here, I'll jump on board and I'll show you what I'm working with here. I had to remove some electronics, and we're going to be mounting the forward leg of the arch on the starboard side and the port side up here on the flats. And then we're going to be mounting the aft portion on the sloping transom, as opposed to mounting both flat on the deck. I don't want to do that. I'll take you over the other side and take a look at that. It's a little cleaner. So this is the port side. So picture one of the mounts here going up and the other one being flat here. Out of the box, this assembly comes as though both of these legs were going to be mounted flat on the deck. So this one is going to be the aft leg that needs to be shortened significantly in order to maintain level. So we need to measure, well, they say measure twice and cut once. I'm probably going to measure 10 or 20 times because I know myself. We're going to have to cut a lot off of this leg in order to get this arch to lay flat. So right now it's just David and me working on this, and we need to leverage as much physics as possible. So nothing super complicated here. I've strung up a piece of Dyneema. I'll try to zoom in on it for you, between the split backstays here, just as a guide. And you can see the slack line up there is actually the topping lift for the boom, which I've removed, and I've extended it with just a length of line. Now we're going to build a bridle, or rig up a bridle across the tower here, and then we're going to connect the topping lift. We'll just call it the halyard. We're going to connect the halyard and hold it up over the boat. One guy on each side, and theoretically we should be able to do a dry fit that way. We have some additional help coming later this afternoon, but we're going to try our best to get things at least in a place where we can make some steady progress between now and then. All right, guys, so now this is what it looks like on the dock, fully assembled without the bolts, the through bolts installed for the dry fit. This is kind of what it looks like if this were to be mounted flat on the deck of the boat. But of course, that's not what we're doing. You can see that we have the topping lift halyard extended, attached to the bridle, and I guess if David were to let go, theoretically we wouldn't have too many problems, would we? No? Okay. All right, guys, we're still on day 2, and we are in blazing, scorching sun here in South Florida on Key Biscayne. You can see my face is redder than it was earlier, and I might have a couple of grays coming through my beard. No, that's not grays, that's 3M 5200 sealant. That's never going to come off. Let me flip the camera around and show you where we're at. So, as smart as we think we are, and I say that very sarcastically, we're really not that smart. We don't follow instructions. I will say, the Atlantic Towers product is really nice. The instructions are a joke. They're terrible. They really need help with that. They have an amazing product, and I'd hate to see their product not do well because the instructions are terrible. There's this collar, the sleeve here that keeps everything aligned really well. And we neglected to or forgot to put it on both sides. Please don't pay any attention to how messy this is. Most of it is lithium grease. We took the entire assembly apart again, and you remember it was a total nightmare to get it together in the first place. But the trick is that lithium grease. I'll tell you what, it is like magic. It went right back together inside of maybe 15 to 30 minutes versus 4 or 5 hours that it took us. We've got everything measured up nicely, and we're just finishing all the bolts here. Again, don't pay any attention to the messy, drippy workspace. We're going to clean up all the lithium grease, and we're going to trim off all of the floating 5200 that's on there. So we'll continue this, and we'll tune you back in as soon as we have more to show. Well, the hard part is over. Our very nice and gracious dock neighbors, Mike and Nate, came over and helped us guide the arch, fully assembled, into place while I operated the winch. And take a look at it. Is in place, not anchored at all, so we still have a lot of work to do, but this is the structure, and it is quite massive.
Now would be a good time to update you guys after the fact. We decided to mount the arch flat on the deck rather than cut the forward legs backward so that we could mount on the sloping transom.
So of course the next step will be to provisionally put it in place and then mount it and secure it and go from there. We'll keep you posted. It is hot out here. There's some finagling and placing things where we kind of want them. We decided that it's probably not best to have the aft leg mounted inboard of the rail. So we lifted it up. David and I did this solo. We hoisted it up and we brought it back down aft of the stern rail. And that is much closer to our intended mounting point. I really don't think we're going to be able to get it any closer. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to get it into that mounting hole. We'll see. It's tedious and in some cases hard as most of this process has been. This part really sucks. Let's go down for the 20th time into the lazarette. Okay. That is where the center of the backing plate needs to be, right through that hole. Unfortunately, the problem being that we need something to fill the void between the deck and the hull. You can see it's, oh gosh, 3/8 of an inch or so. Another trip to the hardware store. Oh, I am so cooked right now. Wow. The old man outlasted David today, but I don't know. I am pretty beat. Folks, we're on the afternoon of day 3. How's my suntan coming along? I wised up a little bit, and I've been wearing a hat all day. In this ratty old t-shirt with blood stains all over it from nicking and cutting myself in various places. But I didn't do a ton of filming on the finishing phases because there was so much detail work. It became very difficult to film every little detail. Lots of adjustments, lots of up and down the lazarette, lots of one crank here on the ratchet straps, you know, moving this forward legs in an inch, the aft legs out a little bit, so on and so forth. But the arch is finally installed, and I'm going to show you all the details right now. So let me back up here, and that's what it looks like. And we have David up there doing some of the final cleanup operations here. Looks pretty nice. Looks really nice. This is kind of what it looks like from the side. You can still see the old name on the boat. That's coming off this weekend. And on the port side here, you can see the arch. And it looks really, really good. Now I'm going to zoom in and point out a couple of things that have changed since the last update. First and foremost, the aft leg, we decided rather than go inboard of the stern rail or outboard of the stern rail altogether, we decided to go in between the stern rails. And there was exactly like 3 inches and change of offset. So we could thread it in without bending or forcing anything around. And here you can see it on the starboard side as well, that the top rail is inboard of the aft leg and the bottom rail is outboard of the bottom leg. So the reason that we did that was not for aesthetics, it's not because it was structural, it was because we had no choice, and I'll show you why. If we had this top rail inboard here, it would move everything down here forward by, I don't know, a few inches, which would run into all sorts of contact with electrical wires. Now if we moved this aft leg outboard of the bottom rail, it would have moved everything back by about 3.5, 4 inches. And the trouble with that is it would have positioned this forward leg somewhere right over this. See the void between the non-skid where it's blank? There is a structural bulkhead down below that it's absolutely not able to be worked around, and I wouldn't want to anyways. But the good news is that in moving it to the position that it is precisely in right now, it is mounted on a double thick layer, structural layer, that totals almost 1.5 inches, maybe a little more than that even. And so these forward legs, which is really where all of the pulling pressure is going to be concentrated, there's going to be, when it's loaded up, there's going to be obviously pulling from the forward legs and compression on the aft legs. We want to have as much structural support as possible on those forward legs. So it really, really worked out to our advantage. It was a little frustrating, but we managed to pull it off. So now I just want to kind of conclude by saying this is by no means a perfect installation by any means, but I would say it's about a 95% installation. There were some trial and error things that we learned along the way, and one of those, as I described a little earlier, is that when you're inserting the arch sides into the arch coupler, it is essential, absolutely essential, to use some sort of a grease. I used white lithium grease. Use whatever grease you want. Just be aware that you're going to need to clean up afterwards. The white lithium comes off pretty easily. To my knowledge, it doesn't have any sort of adverse reaction with anodized aluminum. If it does, then, well, I've just learned something else. But I think it's all good. If you don't grease up those fittings, you are going to think thoughts and utter words that you wish that you never had thought and uttered, you'll get very frustrated. It's just the way it is. What else? There's a couple of other things I need to do to complete this. Very minor, and I'm not going to load it up until I've completed it. I have through bolted the base plug, I guess you'd call it, to the legs themselves, and you can see that here. What I am going to do is I'm going to, at 90 degrees, drill and tap, offset in height, obviously, so that we can put some set screws so that we don't have all the load distributed on that one bolt. So that's an important thing that we're going to do. And like I said, we're going to do that before loading it up. Lastly, I think what we need to do is we need to rig the davit arms onto the arch and devise the block and tackle system that we're going to use to raise and lower the dinghy. Not really sure how we're going to do that, but we'll kind of design that tonight. And I think I'm done with this project for the day. I'm going to pick this up tomorrow. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join me on this. I'm going to release a separate video for the davit arm installation. I think that is deserving of a separate video. But for now, this episode is complete and this project is complete. If you found this video informative or helpful, or you enjoyed it and you want to see more stuff, we'd appreciate your supporting our channel by giving us a thumbs up and by hitting the subscribe button, and click the little bell so that you get notified whenever we come out with new videos. And if you haven't already checked out our other channels, Fly JFY, which is our aviation channel, and Redneck Homestead, which is our off-grid mountain living homestead, it'd be great if you would check those out and support us in those venues as well. In any case, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you on the next video.